In December 1900, the Lighthouse on Island Moor was one of the most isolated outposts in the British Isles. It was manned by 3 veterans, James Ducat, Thomas Marshall, and Donald MacArthur. MacArthur was the seasoned veteran of the group, a mariner known for a tough, uncompromising personality that had been forged by decades at sea. On December 15th, a passing steamer noticed the lighthouse was dark. Because of the winter weather, a relief ship, the Hesperus, couldn't fight its way to the island until December 26th. Captain James Harvey arrived to a dead island. No welcome flags were flying, no supply boxes sat on the landing, and despite the Hesperus firing flares and sounding its horn, the keepers didn't appear. 3 experienced men had completely abandoned their duties. For a guiding light to go dark for 11 days, the failure had to have been total and immediate. Relief keeper Joseph Moore went ashore alone to investigate the silence. He made the long climb up the stone stairs to the living quarters and stepped into a kitchen that looked like it had been frozen in time. On the table sat a meal of mutton and potatoes. It was completely untouched, as if the keepers had been interrupted just as they were picking up their forks. A single kitchen chair lay on its side nearby. The position of the chair suggested someone had stood up with enough force to send it toppling over. On the wall, 2 of the 3 heavy outdoor oilskins were missing. This meant one man, likely MacArthur, had run out into a freezing December storm in his shirt sleeves, violating a strict safety rule that required one keeper to always stay inside the tower. Yet the maintenance of the light itself was flawless. The lamp was clean and full of oil. Moore found the main door and the outside gates locked securely from the outside. The evidence creates a friction between the interior and exterior of the house. Inside, a chair is knocked over in a panicked flight. Outside, the doors are carefully locked as if the departure was routine. Investigators looking for clues in the written record turned to the official logbook, where the entries had been kept by Thomas Marshall. Entries diverged on December 12th. Marshall recorded a severe gale, noting Ducat was quiet and veteran MacArthur was crying. By December 13th, the storm raged, leaving all 3 praying. The log ended December 15th. Storm ended, sea calm. God is over all. These entries describe a slow 3-day collapse of morale, but that timeline doesn't fit the kitchen, which showed a meal interrupted in one frantic moment. If the logbook is accurate, the crisis on Island Moor didn't happen in an afternoon. It was a psychological ordeal that lasted nearly half a week. This timeline compares the logbook with meteorological records. While Marshall wrote of a terrifying gale between the 12th and 15th, actual data shows the area was calm. The storm didn't hit until the night of December 16th, after the light went dark. This discrepancy has led to 2 main theories. The first is a rogue wave, a freak wall of water that swept all 3 men off the cliffs while they were trying to secure a landing crane or equipment. While a wave explains the sudden physical exit, it doesn't account for the logbook. A wave doesn't explain why MacArthur would have been crying days before it struck, or why they would document a storm that hadn't arrived yet. The second theory is shared psychosis, that the isolation caused one keeper to snap, leading to a murder-suicide. This would explain the hallucinatory logbook entries. However, psychosis doesn't explain the locked doors. If a man murders his companions and jumps into the sea, he is unlikely to stop and lock the gates behind him with a key. We are left with a story where the physical evidence and the written evidence simply refuse to align. The kitchen tells us they fled in seconds. The logbook tells us they suffered for days. It suggests that isolation might create its own environment, one where the mind begins to experience its own reality, detached from the weather or the world outside. Over a century later, Island Moor stands as a testament to the fragility of our perception when all contact with other humans is severed. The ultimate mystery of the Flannan Isles isn't the wave that eventually hit the island, but the events that led 3 experienced men to record a storm while the sea was still calm.